Congress is investigating Harvard, MIT, and Penn over anti-Semitism on college campuses. This week, 15 college presidents were accused of not doing enough to stop the rallies and the violent incidents that have spiked on campuses since the Israel-Hamas war started. Harvard is accused of not condemning hate speech, and at MIT, Jewish students claim protesters blocked them from going to class. Penn has now lost a $100 million donation after the anti-Semitism hearing. The university's president facing a lot of pressure now to resign. The presidents of Penn and Harvard have released statements following their testimony. Harvard's president saying calls for violence against the Jewish community have no place at Harvard. The American Jewish Committee just released its Translate Hate glossary to help fight anti-Semitism. For more on this, I'm joined by Julia Rayman, Senior Director of Policy and Political Affairs for the American Jewish Committee. Thank you and welcome back to the program. Testimony from the university presidents has sparked a lot of debate right now, described by the House Education Committee chair as absolutely unacceptable. How did you feel about what they said, or maybe more importantly, what they didn't say?
I can only echo Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who called their statements pathetic and morally bankrupt. There's not been, at least in my memory, a congressional hearing that has sparked the kind of international, universal outrage that this hearing sparked. And the fact that now there's a congressional investigation, I think, is probably the first step of many that we'll be taking against universities like these, and not just these, but universities and educational institutions across the country that aren't doing what they need to do to be protecting their Jewish students.
So we have an investigation. There are also calls for these presidents to step down. Is that the answer? Should they resign?
Their resignation may be the best thing for those schools, but that's not what's going to keep Jewish students safe. What needs to happen is that universities need to look at their codes of conduct. They need to be sure that they are in compliance with Title VI. They need to be using the resources that the Department of Education is begging them to use. They need to look at issues of tenure and what kind of faculty they have and what those faculty are teaching. And there needs to stop being a free pass for the intentional spreading of hate on college campuses, no matter who that hate is intended to target.
And I mentioned the Harvard president said calls for violence against the Jewish community have no place at Harvard. What more would you like for that president and the others to say to address this?
Well, first, they need to be saying that over and over and over again, not just in front of Congress, but in front of their own student body. They need to make sure that the directives match that word. Right? You showed students being intimidated, people not being able to go to their classrooms because of protests. That is the very definition of a hostile environment that impedes the ability of Jewish students or other students to learn. That is the benchmark test for a hostile environment, and they need to be sure that that kind of environment is not the environment that they are fostering. So the words at the hearing were atrocious, truly shameful. If they want to make up for it, they need to be making up for it not just with their words, but with their actions.
And education about what anti-Semitism is such a key component of this, and you all are helping to do that work. In response, your organization, as I mentioned, released a Translate Hate glossary to help fight anti-Semitism. Stopping anti-Semitism starts, you say, with understanding it. So tell me about this glossary. I was able to look through it. You even have a quiz on there to gauge where you stand on your knowledge of anti-Semitism and what it looks like.
Thanks so much for asking about this, Marnie. It's probably the best resource that we as the American Jewish Committee, but I would say broadly, that a lot of Jewish organizations have put out to understand anti-Semitism, in part because it's very visual. It allows you to sort of look and see images, memes, political cartoons that give examples of some of the tropes that have been anti-Semitic for literally hundreds of years, decades, millennium, but continue to be recycled. So it's sort of these tropes that hide in plain sight. Everything from ideas of Jewish power, Jewish control, Jews owning the media or controlling the weather, to the phrases like "Jew them down." This is our newest iteration of the Translate Hate Visual Glossary, but it's not the first. We started this in 2019 with just over 25 terms, and now just a few years later, we have nearly 60 terms that explain what the terms are, what the tropes are, allow people to visually identify them and say, oh, now I understand what that means, but also providing a lot of nuance, because anti-Semitism isn't always black or white. There's a lot of gray. And so we want to be really clear that there are certain terms that, depending on context, they may not be anti-Semitic, but the education that needs to take place nonetheless is there, right? If you're going to talk about, let's say, philo-Semitism, right? There are a lot of people out there who would wear the badge of philo-Semitism proudly and say, I stand with the Jewish people, and they're coming from a true place of allyship. But for others, it can be implying that, oh, the Jewish people who I love and care for so much, in a very patronizing way, in a way that allows a minority community to be disempowered or marginalized. So the Translate Hate Glossary sort of goes through, when is this anti-Semitic? When is this not anti-Semitic? So even those who are using terms or seeing them in the media or in newspapers or what have you can recognize, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I know the nuance. And now I'm prepared to address it appropriately. The other thing I'll say about our glossary is that it's meant to be really a user-friendly document. It's been used in city council meetings when someone echoes a trope. There have been other city council members who hold it up in a visual copy and say, no, 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 Translate Hate says that's anti-Semitism. It's been used in court hearings, in expert testimony, trying to prove hate crimes. In a number of libraries around the country, Translate Hate is provided as a resource for all. So it really is meant to be an educational tool, recognizing that until we understand what this problem is, truly and deeply understand it, we can't reach solutions.
And an important tool indeed. You define terms like globalist and Zionist, and it is a call to action for college students of all faiths, and not just college students, but everyone to take a look. I encourage you to do so. Julie Rayman, thank you as always.
Thank you, Marnie.
Coming